Fresh from the trenches, we have powerhouse music video and commercial director Charlie Sarsfield. Here, Insider tips on navigating the directing scene, working with big names, landing jobs, and staying true to your vision. Grab a pen. This episode's full of gems. Let's get it.
Bruv, I feel like I'm in fire in the booth.
Yeah. Charlie Sloth.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that is rolling. Yeah, go. Nice. There we go.
That takes me back.
He's done this before.
Yeah, that takes me back.
All right, cool. So welcome to the Trenches Talk podcast episode. Today we have Charlie Sarsfield, big dog director.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some intro.
Well, yeah, you know.
Sponsored by Fuji, though.
Yeah. It's more of a self-endorsement, but it's like, if you
One
do...
day soon.
Yeah.
It's coming.
But yeah, Charlie, welcome.
Thanks, bro. It's nice to be here.
I'm going to start off with just like the work you've done this year has been really, really good. I feel like it's like I've only kind of met you recently and worked with you recently, but like I feel like I've known your work for a while, and
Appreciate that.
I think you're a good person to bring on and chat about
dive
it.
into the mind of this year's been mental, really. I kind of always talk about directing as like levels and ladders. It's kind of snakes and ladders, and a snake can be one bad video, but to get to a certain level, you need to climb a million ladders. So like I remember last year it was like, wow, I'm making videos for all these artists that I love, and that was really important to me. And that was like the foundation year. And then like at the beginning of this year, it was like we did, 3 Kojey videos in quick succession. Then that quickly moved on to doing like a project with a director out in LA called Phil Fury. And that definitely like raised the profile. That was like Davido, Malogo, Fanatics, Coffee, and Idris Elba. Nearly forgot Idris. That's wow. And so that was a mad shoot. And then from then it just was like, oh, there's the ladder up now. And it was like, now you're working with artists that everyone loves. So it's like, I'm from Cornwall, well, I'm kind of from everywhere, but teenage years grew up in Cornwall. And so I go back and see my Cornish friends and they're like, what's George Ezra like? Or like, what's Mabel like? And you're like, wow, like you weren't asking me that last year when I was talking about all of these guys. So it's been a mad year, and it's quite like our jobs are both pressure. It's always pressure, and especially when you're on set like 2, 3, 4 times a week, and you've got to like, okay, this artist needs this from me as a director, and then this DP needs this from me as like, all of you guys are mad different. Like some need a lot more like guidance, some don't, some like to play, some don't, and so some are very rigid, and you kind of give them a 15-shot list, and that's all you get. Whereas some are like, you're on set like you, and you're like, oh, let's do this and let's do that, and what about this? And you're like, okay, sick, like that's cool. You deal with the camera, then I'll deal with the artist. And I kind of like that. And this year's just been like play, but on a much larger scale, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary. It's scary.
I feel like this year your work has been like super consistent in like obviously just doing a bit of research for this podcast. I was looking at, I watched most of them yesterday. I was like, fuck, like yes. All of these are like super high quality. Was that something that, at the start of the year you set out to do, or is that something just in your work already?
You can only do what your crew can do. So, I've been very lucky to work with some guys that I regard as like the best the UK has to offer, like, and you're on that list, and Courtney Bennett's on that list, Pete Steinman, Tom Hole, like these are guys that I've kind of like, Courtney I've known for 6-7 years. We only started working together this year, started working with you this year. Pete I've known since he was 20, and then Tom Hole actually DP'd one of my first solo videos. So you kind of, you choose your weapons and then you go to war, but like they shoot in a way that I kind of see. And, I kind of like to live in this, it's a bit surreal. The colors, I love color, and I like dark images. And so, but then when you move into the pop world, they're like, it needs to be pop. And you're like, well, that doesn't really work sometimes. And then you get someone like Youngblood who's like, fuck it up more. And you're like, sick. Okay. And then you go to, like, we shot George Ezra and Youngblood in a week apart. And so that was like a mad mind switch up, because you're going from like Youngblood, who's like, fuck everything, do what you want. Like, I don't care, spit on the film. Like, I don't care. And then you go to George Ezra and he's like, he's quite chilled, but it's like, he's a pop prince. Like, he is. So you got to switch up the way in which you attack that project. And with all of the things, like, I always, I don't know, like, I'm pitching on some things at the moment, which are quite exciting, but it's like, I'm excited by those projects, A, because of the talent that these artists hold, but then also, like, I'm like, I want to do this because it's different, and we haven't seen her like this or him like that, and that's what I want to do. And I always go in with that thing of being like, I'm never going to be Solomon. Like, I'm never going to be Solomon. I'm never going to be Colin Tilley. I'm never going to be those guys. But I know what I do. And that's kind of what this year was all about, is going, what do you want to make? And how do you want to do it? And what's your process? And I think we've come to the end of the year, and I kind of know that now. Like, I write a treatment, shot list is done the same day. And then as soon as that's awarded, I get in the room with the DP and we work it out. And then from there, it's like, that's building the look. And, you know, if I could, I'd shoot on 16 or 35 every week, every shoot. Pop stars, or the people that hold the keys to the pop stars, and are like, why? And I understand that, but then I come from a photography background, so everything, like, most DPs hate me because I know about framing, and I know what I want, and I know what lenses I want, and I've worked really hard this year to kind of ease up on that and be like, okay, that's your world. I've chosen you. You're my guy or girl. Go do your thing. And that's a really hard thing as a director to let go of, but then it has resulted in better work, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then you always come over and you're like, it's a bit too dark. Like, damn you.
Well, that's only because I got the commissioner in my left ear again. It's a bit dark, isn't it? You're like, no.
Yeah. You're like, actually, if I bring up this false colour, there is actually detail there, but you know what?
Where's the brightness on the monitor?
Yeah. Yeah, that's too many stories. Too many stories. But anyway, but yeah. So on this podcast, we're here just to share stories within the industry,
mm-hmm.
give advice with mainly the aim for to inspire and just to share knowledge amongst like our peers, but also just people that want to get into the industry. And I think that's kind of the main aim. And yeah, I'm sure you've got loads of stories to tell. So
probably, yeah.
I think we'll like divulge them throughout this. Yeah, this talk.
Yeah, we'll just have a nice open chat and see where we go to.
But yeah, like just like for your background, like
mm-hmm.
where did the interest in film start?
Yeah, well, I suppose I lived with my grandparents, so my childhood was a bit tumultuous, I think is the word. Mm-hmm. I lived abroad for like 3 years when I was a kid, didn't really go to school. Mum had her troubles in life, and my dad was like kind of around for a bit and then wasn't, and it just got to a point where I couldn't be there anymore. But I would see my grandparents now and again, and essentially I kind of was just like, hello, can I live with you? And so I moved in with my grandparents, and my grandpa was kind of like my grandpa was like really hardworking dude, done all types of businesses, proper grafter, like proper Del Boy character, like was a proper grafter, did everything from, chippying to like, he ran a hotel in the Isles of Scilly called the Bell Rock Hotel. And then my dad went to school and he moved to the mainland, and like he restores tricks trains. So like he's like very creative in different ways. And when I was like 9 or something, we'd go skiing together. That was like me and grandpa's thing, and we'd do that every year regardless of anything. And he always had a VHS camera, and I was just obsessed with it. And like one of the first clips on one of our home videos is like me throwing the camera around, and grandpa's like, you'll never work for Steven Spielberg like that. And then I was like, right, like that's well fun. And so then I kind of went to a private school, was very lucky. My grandpa sold some land in Cornwall and was like, right, you have an 8% attendance record at school. I need to teach you how to write, basically, at least. And he sent me to a school, and they had a really great art and design sort of thing, and I had some great teachers there who really like pushed that. And so I was always like painting or drawing. And then I got to college and they had photography, and I got given a camera when I was like 14, and I was like, yo, that's sick. Like, I love that. And I was well into like all these mad photographers. And then essentially I went to uni and studied like film and photography at Westminster, and then basically would live in the darkroom in the day, and then at night would like, I got a kind of, it's a job, but it wasn't paid. So it's kind of an internship really with communion. But I kind of was just like, I want to take photos of whoever you've got. Let me know when the gigs are and I'll go. So I was doing all these photos, and then I met this guy called Greg Houston, who's an amazing guy who runs Baby Sweet Productions. And he basically was just like, yo, here's a camera. Or I was using 5Ds. Everyone was using 5Ds at the time. And he was just like, yo, just shoot with me. And so then it was in that where I was like, wow, this is really fun. And then through him, I met a guy called Ewan Allardyce, who's amazing, worked at MTV. And he was like, yo, we've got a running job. And I'd just graduated. It was like the day of my graduation. And Ewan called me and he was like, yo, would you want to be a runner at MTV? And I was like, fuck yeah, that sounds sick. And then it was like in a studio all the time. So it was just me and Ewan in the studio. So like we could do whatever we wanted. So then like we'd just have friends and artists coming through, and we'd steal the cameras at weekends. And then yeah, I started making music videos with my friends. And then like, I don't know, we'd just like shoot stuff all the time. And loads of stuff never came out. Like Stormzy's ex-girlfriend lived down the road, so he would come to the studio and was shooting. They had like I think it was when he was doing like Brotherhood, and they had like readings near us or whatever, and so he'd just like be there, and then we shot some things that never came out, and we shot some stuff that did come out, and it was kind of just like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I've got this freestyle, should we shoot it? Yeah, fine, we'll do that. And then I basically, one of my good friends, she put me in touch with an artist who came over. We shot a music video, Protege from Jamaica, and then his manager was the same manager as Marshall Montano. And then I shot Sean Paul and Marshall Montano video with Major Lazer. And it was just like a run and gun thing. Stole the cameras from MTV. Like it was a C300, like running around fucking Carnival, and it was mad. And like people chasing Sean Paul everywhere. And then I signed to Marissa Garner, and then it kind of just sort of happened from there. And I think me and my friend Jordan Bond, we were directing together, producing kind of thing. And it was like, started off mainly in content and all of that, and lots of live sessions. And kind of, I was known as like the live guy for a long time, because it was like, oh, well, you just do live sessions. And it's like, well, they're kind of harder to make look nice than music videos. Like someone's actually singing in a live session. I don't know if anyone knows that people don't sing in music videos, but it's like, and so that used to really annoy me. And then essentially we just like 2 years ago, I joined Untold, and we kind of sat down and were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, fucking everything, let's go. And then that's kind of, that was the journey. But then obviously it sounds like, oh, it sounds chilled. And you're like, well, yeah, but then it was, this year, I think I've done 39 projects. And like last year it was like, and because I do photography as well, it's like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But then that's kind of the way. And I think what this podcast stands for, and like helping people get in, is like, it really is like hard work beats talent. And you can learn, almost in our industry, you can learn to be talented, which is quite a weird thing to say, but like if you watch films and you really study films, not just watch them, but actually study them and go, why are they choosing that shot there, and all of that, and you can really like get the whole sort of crash course by just watching, which is probably the only industry in the world that you can do that. Like, especially as a director, like I'd say that to be a director, it's like communication, knowing the sort of like, not history, but you need to have some context to why you're doing stuff. and then just having an idea on what you are and what you want to say. And I think like that's the most important thing of any journey. And it's kind of taken me 10 years to get to being like, oh, we're going to do this now. And so it's nice when you're like, oh, you're killing it and everything, because it's like I'm really proud of what I'm doing, but it's kind of like sometimes I feel like that if you don't have 50,000 followers on Instagram, no one gives a fuck, basically. And so it's nice when your peers, especially like the people that you work with, respect the work that you're putting out, I think. So yeah, it's nice. It's like a well-rounded journey. And like now grandpa's like, grandpa going like, I don't really know what you want to do with your life, but go and do it. And then now he can like buy a £15 ticket to a live stream that's going out globally. And he's like, wow, what? And you're in charge of that? And it's like, yeah. And he's like, that's mental. And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm trying to find the right shoot to get the old boy up and be on set, because I think he'd just be fascinated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like, yeah, that would be such a nice full circle moment. Like,
yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
But no, yeah, that's cool. I mean, from the sounds of it, I think we're kind of quite similar. Like I went to uni, but I feel like probably my uni time and your time at MTV was probably similar. Like
age wise.
But also the fact that they had kit and then they just let us go and shoot,
have fun. Yeah.
And I think that's a really big, I don't know, takeaway point of just go and do it.
And also, like, I think this is something that has to be said. Like, I've had a lot of fun this year, like so much fun. And I think that often people forget that it's a job and all of that stuff. But like music videos, you look at like the biggest music videos from the last like 20 years and everyone's like, wow, that looks like so much fun. And I think now there's so much pressure and it's like, it is a lot of money and I understand that, but the budgets have gone way down in the last 20 years. And so we should be at least able to, and that's why my first rule on set is like, I want everyone to have a good time. And that goes from the artist right down to the runners. Like, you kind of want everyone to feel like it's their video. And I think there's so much room to play in music videos, and that should never be forgotten. So whether you are shooting your mate who you've been friends with for 20 years, or whether you're shooting a big pop star, like, it's always about play and having the most fun. But like you said, it is go out, play, have fun, shoot whatever you want. Like, even if it's still life, you'll still learn stuff from it. And I think that's, like, I look at some directors who are like, haven't been on set for a long time. And I'm like, wow, like, I couldn't do that. And like, if I'm not on set for a week, I'm like, what's going on? And, that's a bad trait that I'm trying to work on. But also it's all about learning for me. So I feel like I'm in like the perfect age to learn. And I feel like I can absorb a lot of information. Like, even when I first worked with you, like, I learned stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's so important as well, as like working with as many people that you find interesting. And that's such an important thing, which doesn't happen a lot, I think. It's, again, going to war with the same weapons every time, and you're not, sorry, I'm in COD mode, so it's a bit mad, isn't it? You're just like,
well, you're in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez. Good, it's like we teach that up.
Yeah. But no, for sure. And yeah, you've got to learn to deliver, but also, yeah, like I do learn like something new on every shoot, even if it's something small.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think also there's an element of like, otherwise we'd all be making the same videos over and over again. And like, I'm under no illusions. Like, I think this year I've really like learned what I do well as a director, and whether that's like performance based, essentially portraits, a bit of portraits dabbled in there, but like, and but we can't just stay stagnant. And I think that the UK especially, like, you look at what America do and it's like, wow, like, that's a mad video. That's a mad video. And like, here in the UK, it's kind of like, sometimes video will come, I'm trying to be really careful, but like, sometimes you'll see a video and you'll be like, oh, I've seen that video before. And there are a few guys that are like really killing it and doing amazing stuff. And you're like, oh, like, we need more of that. And I think that's what's important. Is like, and I was having an interesting conversation with my friend Dumas, who's an amazing director, but we were talking about like how you can either like sometimes I'll write a treatment and I'll write an idea and I'll be like, that will not win. And I'll know that won't win because that's not what the industry wants. So, and that annoys me.
What is that a treatment you've written yourself?
Yeah. So like a idea for a music video, I'll hear the track and I'll be like, yo, this would be sick. And then you send it and then like, yeah, you just hear nothing back. It's crickets. And then you write an idea where you're like, yeah, we'll make it. And then they're like, love it. And you're like, okay. And so I think, that's there's, I think Producer Lounge on Instagram put out a thing being like, we need like fundamental changes. And I think that is, if we ever want to take on the US and if we want to improve what music videos are in the UK, like there needs to be some adventure outside of this superstar artist can carry a video. Whereas actually it's like you look at a Kendrick video, like Kendrick has just sat there and the video's been amazing, but his videos are amazing as well. So like it's about how you marry that with that. And I'm not saying that we haven't produced amazing videos, but I'm just saying like the more play you have, the more room there is for a new video that is bigger and bolder. And it does take the like, you look at like Gibson Hazard, who just makes like the maddest things. And you're like, well, how does he even do that? And then to consider that he started by just making them in his like bedroom or whatever, shutting the door for a month and just making madness. And you're like, where's the room for that here? Like, and there are those geniuses that do that stuff, but they're often not given. Like Gibson Hazard was making that, and then like I swear, like 6 months later, it's like, yo, you just made one for Drake. Like, how did that happen? Like, whereas that's like there's no even comparison really. I suppose Jamal, big up Jamal, but it's one like what he did in his life is kind of like that. He was the one who was like the mold breaker, and what he's done what his legacy has been kind of. If anyone needs a freestyle, it's like, well, let's just go handheld like an F64 or whatever, and you're like, oh, like that makes sense. But I suppose it's like, what is the next generation? Who are the next generation? And that's kind of the interesting thing. And there are a lot of amazing young directors like Ebenezer and all of these kids that are just sick at what they do. Edam, like all of them, and you're just like, wow, like the talent that you have is amazing, and they are given the opportunities by the artist. And then labels come after that, if that makes sense. But it's like labels should be finding that talent early doors.
I totally agree. I feel that the industry plays it way too safe. And it has done for probably forever.
Yeah.
But I guess...
But you understand why. Because it's commodity and it's entertainment. And at the end of the day, it is all a business. So however extreme an artist wants to be, like there are extreme artists as well. Like Youngblood, for example, he's a great example of someone who has really risen to the top, is a great young man, and really wants to, like, really doesn't care. Like, I think he's pretty famous in like sort of being like, fuck the label. Like, how much money do you need? Like, even in my experience, he was like, yo, I'll just transfer you money. Like, what do you need? And I was like, dude, like, I love you. And that's amazing. But we can't play those games because it's... And so then you get into a tricky game, I think, because you're kind of like, oh, who am I making the video for? And like, one of the things that I've always said is I make the video for the artist. And at the end of the day, the commissioner isn't going to sit there in 20 years and be like, look at my legacy and go, oh, that video that I made with that person. Whereas like, whether you're a Stormzy all the way to, well, like all across the board, you look at your videos, and even if they're on private, you'll still go back and watch them. And so really like their legacy is the videos that we make. So kind of my thing is always like, it's for the artist. Yeah, you have to please everyone else. People pleasing, God, such a thing in my life at the moment. But it's one of those where you have to adhere to the rules that are set by the industry, and then everything else is kind of how you take it on. I know a lot of directors who just get DMs from artists, and it's like, yo, let's make a video. And then the director walks into the production company and is like, yo, I've got this video. Whoa. That's echo. But then like I kind of go down the traditional route where it is very much like it all gets messy for me if I start playing that game. So then I'm kind of like, yo, get your manager to email through these. And I suppose it's I don't know how deep we want to go on this podcast with like what the layers are to it, but essentially you've got a commissioner who has a brief, and that brief is written by them and the management / artist, and then that will be sent out to a number of different production companies, probably too many, and then directors will choose to write on it. If the commissioner goes, here's a brief, can you send it to Charlie or whatever, and then you're sat there and the guy next to you is getting a brief that you want, and it's all hell. Yeah. No. To be fair, that was one of my questions, but like for maybe later on about we'll dig into
the pitching process. Yeah. But yeah, like I think for me, like after working with you and dealing with you directly, I think
nightmare.
No, I was going to say I think you deal with that whole system really well, and I think you deal with people really well, and I think that's probably contributed towards your success, because you're a stand-up fucking nice guy.
I appreciate that.
And like
you're not bad either.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, no, like I can tell just from when you chat to people, you genuinely care, you genuinely like respect people, and you have time, and that like not many people have that within this industry, and like that's what I really liked about you, and I felt like we connected in that way because you were real, like I was real.
But I think also that's a big thing, like you have these people put trust in you. So like on the job that we did, Faye's the commissioner, and she's like lovely, like, and I really respect her as a human, let alone what her job is. And then I do think that she's one of the best that I've worked with in that role. So then there's a pressure on you to deliver for them as well as for you. And obviously, I mean, we did a Louis Tomlinson job together, which, is a bit of a baptism of fire for us working together first off the bat and being like, okay, dude, it's Louis Tomlinson, which like, yeah, some people might not, it might not impress or whatever, but it's Louis Tomlinson. Like he went number one. His numbers are huge. Like he sells out arenas, and he was in one of the biggest boy bands ever. And so because of that history, the pressure that's on that shoot is immense. But I think even with Louis feels what the energy is of the shoot, and we managed to generate a really good vibe on that shoot, and Louis really appreciated it. And so then, he was filming for 4 hours and having a great time. And so I think it's like, that's such an important thing. If everyone's having a good time, things run smoother. And also, if someone's having a good time, you can turn around and be like, I'd really like to get a shot of this. And everyone's more likely to do it. Whereas I think if it's like, you're behind schedule, everyone's giving you grief. Like, even if my first is going, you're half an hour over, I'll look through the shot list and like, I mean, Jack's not here, so I can say whatever I want, but I will always be like, that shot will take me 5 minutes. This shot will, and I think you as a director need to know what those shots are so that you can then evaluate in your own way how much time you need. And like, I think once you have all of those, it's like your toolkit, isn't it? And then once you have that in place, it allows you to be more free and happy on set. And that's what I really worked on over the last year, really, is so that I can actually enjoy being on set. Like, we're so lucky to do the jobs that we do and work with the people that we work with and hang out with the artists that we hang out with. And so it is like, rather than being stressed on a shoot day, it's like, do the prep, know what your shots are, speak to your crew, and then you can enjoy the day and have the room to be nice. Whereas I think a lot of directors that are like, oh, everything's a mess. It's like, well, then you can't have those. Like, sometimes I'll just go and sit and talk to the artist because we're like, oh, well, that will take 20 minutes to set up, and you're just chilling. And that's where, you kind of build those relationships, which like we've done quite a lot of like back-to-back jobs with artists this year, and that's mainly because I suppose they feel comfortable. And so that's a testament to not only me, my crew, the production behind it. It's like everyone is on the money, especially, which is mad considering how back-to-back it's been. And so I think it's like I'm only allowed that freedom to be happy and nice because of the team as well. So like that's everyone. So yeah, I don't know if you were really asking a question, but again,
yeah, no,
just rambled.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like it was valuable. So no, for sure. But yeah, I definitely think that's why it's contributed to your success, because people just enjoy working with you. Like some directors, they get on set and you can tell that they like don't really care, and then that affects the wider team. But whereas like, you know, with you, if you're coming with good energy, it's only going to filter down. Like,
well, yeah, and I've been very lucky in my time, and I got to go on set with quite a few big directors and stuff like that when I was at MTV doing like on set widths or whatever. And I'd always like, I'd be like, I'll stay close to the director. And so like Colin Tilley's there, and I'm like, hello, Colin, nice to meet you. I'm just going to be following you around. And then like, you know, I used to spend quite a lot of time in Jamaica, and more time I'd like Nabil would be in Jamaica, like shooting Popcorn or whatever. And I'd be like, fuck, like that's so sick. Like Popcorn and Nabil. And then one night, like randomly, me and my girlfriend at the time were having dinner, and like Nabil just like came and joined us, and then loads of other people joined us. And he said to me, he was like, you need to care about every video like it's your last video. Otherwise you just will stop. And so like, that's always rung true. And I'll never give one project more time than another. The process is the same for all of them. So if I've got 6 projects on, then I need to make the time, and something has to give. And that might be sleep, that might be running, that might be whatever. Definitely been running this year, definitely a bit heavier than I was. But it's like to do the jobs that we do, it's like, you know, I don't know if this happens with you, but you know, some of my friends are like, cool, so see you in December, when are you coming down to Cornwall? I'm like, don't know. They're like, all right, well, you're going to be here in January? And it's like, well, I might have a shoot, might be in LA, might be here, might be there, like, I don't know. And then the worst is like when your friends are like organising something like miles in advance. You're like, I don't know. You're like, yeah?
Yeah.
And then you either disappoint them early, or you have to give up on a job. And it's like, it's so difficult, the way it all works, because
you can't commit to anything else, really.
No, and it's not a full-time job. But then people often think because it's not a full-time job, you're not working all the time. Whereas I'm like, I work more than a full-time job, like definitely. And like the amount of briefs that come in on Fridays, like that's something that definitely needs to change in the industry for us directors. Like, it's like some weekends I'll have 3 treatments to write by Monday morning, and you're like, so what, you lot are all getting to... And that's me being whiny and whatever, and I'm obviously very grateful for the briefs, but I'm also like, that has been a thing since I started. And so it's actually quite nice when a commissioner goes, happy Monday, here's a brief, and you're like, wow, that's good, and I respect that, and I'll always say thank you for that, because it yeah, like we all have lives, and we don't just live on set, and but often it feels like we do.
And I'm from that last point. Yeah, like how do you get work right now?
So I'm signed to Untold. Again, I don't know if it's here and in America. It's here and in America, but essentially I'm exclusive to Untold. So in terms of music videos, Annie will, you know, stand in Warner and give me a brief. That will then hit my inbox. I'll listen to the track, go, yeah, I vibe it. I like the artist. Here's an idea. Untold will then come back to me and be like, it's over budget. I'll be like, yep. So it's about that. And then we'll kind of wean it down to a point where everyone's kind of happy-ish.
And do you find, is that a constant stream? Is there always kind of stuff coming through, or is it?
This year it has been, and it's almost like there were moments in the year where Untold were like, you probably shouldn't write that treatment because you've got 4 shoots in the next 2 weeks. I'll be like, yeah, but I love the artist and I want to do it and I can do that. It's fine. Like, I know what demands that will take of me. And then it was like, cool, write the treatment. Oh, got that job as well. Okay, we got 5 in the next 2 weeks. Whereas there's been points in my career where, well, even now, it's like Christmas is quiet. So, well, I say that. But yeah, no, it is. I've had a quiet like few weeks of kind of writing short films and trying to work different parts of the brain, whether it's photography and like going out at night and shooting loads of long exposures and kind of like all of that stuff, and just like having fun with what we do, and you know, trying to go on recce's and just like get on a line bike and cycle around and see if there's anywhere in London that you haven't shot that might be cool. And so it really swings and roundabouts. But it's like with Mabel, I pitched against people for the first video, and then for the videos after that, it was just me and Mabel, like calling and being like, yo. And Lisa used to be part of my agent team, and so she really trusted me. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, can you just keep me in the loop of what's going on? Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of like me and Mabes would write a treatment or whatever, and then it would almost be backward. We'd be sending it to label. Right.
Okay. Surely that's the sweet spot.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like even it's not even writing the treatment with the artist, but it's getting to a point where you know what the artist likes. And I think that's, I say do the prep to everyone, but that is, to me, it's like, you know, you get a George Ezra brief, the budget's big, there's a lot of pressure on it, there's 2 very big name directors, like bigger than me, and then on top of that, you're like, how do I beat their ideas? I need to put something in my treatment that I know George will see and it will resonate with him, or whether that's something funny, or like, you know, me and George loves Cornwall as much as I do from our conversations together. So it's like, I know a lot about, I research the artist, and I think that's such an important thing to do. Is like, I'm very lucky to have been around music for a decade now, popular music. And so you kind of know you know what the artists like. And so if you can really tap into that, and rather than, it's like the director's ego of going, this is what I want to do for you. Whereas actually it's like, wouldn't it be cool if you do this in your video? And that's a slight difference, but it's like, what's the evolution of that artist? And that's what I'm always looking to try and do. It's like, with Mabel, it was like, I didn't want to make her just like this pop princess. I was like, what is, like, who are you? I don't feel like we ever see that. And so it was like, what do you want to be? And with George, it was like, I've never seen you in the middle of 50 dancing girls. Like, what would that look like? Or young, like, there's just things that you do where like, and I still go back to it. And like, I was talking to, like, it was the Mobos a couple of weeks ago. And Payback was up for best video. Doja won by Central C. And, but I was talking to Koj, and I still stand by. I feel like the Kojey project, I felt the most pressure for, because of the directors that had worked with Kojey. So like, I look up to like that sort of like tapestry of directors. Like, you know, the rest did a lot with Kojey, and I look at those boys as like geniuses. Like, I think they're amazing. And like, we kind of started at the same time. So it's like, I always knew that, and I was like, whoa, like, it's a lot. And then you kind of doing it, and you're like, oh, I can never do what they do, but I can do what I do. And so as soon as you kind of, and that Kojey project really like established that for me as like, oh, what you like is good. And I think you kind of always need to come to that point as a director where you're like, oh, I can do this, and it's fine.
You're saying like working with Kojey is like, how did you meet him? How did that come about?
So yeah, that one was, so I made the first video, actually like the first video for Kojey that I did came out like a year ago today, nearly, like very like, And that kind of happened in this weird way where I knew that the Kojey project. So we at Untold, there's a creative director called Phil Lee who is like a godfather. Like, he's ridiculous. Like, he worked for XL Records. It was the creative director behind Adele's career, not only like one album, but the whole thing. He had a lot to do with the design. Well, he was the creative director on the artwork for Stormzy's latest album. He's just doing bits. Mm-hmm. He got asked to be the creative director lead on Reasons to Smile. So they made a video with Damas Haddad, again one of my good friends, for War Outside, which is the first single off the record. And then Gangster came about, and I think they were they basically put out the brief to a load of directors. Sometimes like briefs go to directors because of budgets. So like, you know, a budget might come in that someone would be like, oh, well, Charlie can't work to that budget anymore, or whatever, or doesn't work to that budget. And I'd kind of said to Annie, I was like, what's going on with Kojey? Like, what's going on? And Annie was like, oh, we've put it out to some directors, like all of that. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, a bit jealous, to be honest. But you kind of just are like, okay, cool. That's fine. I kind of understood it as well. Like, Gangster was a really personal song. And I think Annie, they weren't having much luck. I think they were going back and forth with a lot of the directors and stuff. And then Annie kind of spoke to me and she was like, would you be interested in it? And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like, can you send me the song? And Annie kind of slyly showed me the song and I was like, definitely. Like, it's a family-based film. Like, I'd love to do it. And then Annie was like, well, I'll set you up on a call with Marsha, who's Kojey's manager, part of Kojey's management team, also his sister. So she's represented in the film. And it was kind of like Kojey and her story, but Kojey would be like, it's kind of Marsha's story. I was too young to really know what was going on and understand it all. So I basically spoke to Marsha, and Marsha spent like an hour asking me questions about my life. And then basically Marsha was like, cool, all right, can you do a treatment? And I was like, yeah. So I asked her some questions, took the points that I thought were relevant, that I could make a narrative out of in 3 minutes. And then, yeah, like a week later, we were on set with like a full Kojey family cast and also Kojey's family. So it was like a lot of people, and it was kind of weird, like, you know, Kojey's like brother meeting himself or whatever, and it was a really nice shoot, and it was a nice one to do. Like, that was my second to last shoot before Christmas, so it was like a nice one to do. It felt very like there was a lot of pressure, but again, that one was like, we got into the edit, the shot list was so specific that it was like, I gave that to my editor. We had a cut that evening. Kojey and Ajiro is Kojey's creative director, they came in, and we made one change, which was changing one shot from a 2-second to a 4-second, and that was it.
Wow. And
so like that process was really smooth. And even with like Payback was again such a great experience, because it was like, if Gangster's the like journey, Payback was the fruition. So it's like, here's the family that your life has given to you, like that your life has made, essentially, which is all the people around the table. And that one was like mad because Nux missed his flight. So Nux was like in an airport I think he was in Nigeria, I think. Anyway, so he missed his flight. So like, he wasn't at the actual shoot day with everyone, and no one's really picked up on that.
Oh yeah, no, you can't.
You just can't tell. So, but the pickup shoot we actually did in Untold's office. Like, we did the backdrops with the throne. That's like just Nux and Kojey, like 3 other people, and we had like a little monitor. Like, it was just like, it was a really thrown together shoot. Mm-hmm. Shout out Tommy Raban, who dealt with all the suits. Like, he did a madness. But like, that was a 2-day shoot because Nux missed his flight. It was very like stressful, like me, Koj and Marsha on the phone at 12:30 the night before the shoot, and Marsha's like, yeah, so Nux has missed his flight. And we were like, okay. And I was like, Koj, don't worry, it's all fine. In my head, I'm like, fuck, how do I sort this out? And so then I'm like calling my friends on the way to the shoot, being like, so can I just like could I put Nux in a picture frame or something? And they're like, yeah, of course. And it's like, but I've seen it be done. And I'm like, but as a plan B type vibe. So we shot loads of empty frames and stuff. And we're like, okay, if needs be. And then we kind of all huddled together. But that was really nice because we like shot Kojey and Nux after everything else was shot. Everything was in place on the timeline. My editor was there. So it was like, shoot it, hand it to the editor, shoot some more bits. Editors bang that in. Nux and Kojey are just there. So then they're just like, yeah, cool. Like, and again, that was like Koj and Nux sat down for like half an hour with my editor. And then it was Koj and Nux walked out and were like, yeah, cool, signed off, go to grade. And then we went to grade and went out the next day. So it's like that whole Kojey experience was like proper. Like we built relationships not only with like Koj, but like also the management team and like everything. And it was really nice because I think like they knew that I really cared about the project and I did really care about the project because I really believe in Kojey. So it's nice when you get to work with an artist that like you have a lot of respect for, and then a relationship is actually formed out of that. Like me and Koj don't talk or whatever, but when we see each other, it's always like a good time, and we'll always like have a dance and like drink and whatever, and it's fun. And like the Mobos was definitely a celebration of that, and the Mercuries. So like Mercury nommed, Mobo nommed. Like he definitely should have taken an award home in some form, but like I think for Kojey it was just important to put that body of work together, and it was an honor to be a part of that project.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like it's a dope video. Yeah, like how did that idea come about? Was that because that was is that the second time working with him, and you were like, let's just do like a luxurious video with like velvet, whatever, or
no, I'll tell you how it started. Koj came into the office. I was like, let's just get Koj in, we'll talk about it. So I remember Koj swans in, Kojey's like the most swaggy guy ever. So he comes in dressed to the nines. I'm like, brother, I'm here in a tracksuit, like looking like I've literally rolled out of bed, and you're literally glowing. And so I was like, play me some videos that you want Payback to kind of be like. He was showing me all these videos, and he was like, and he showed me Kendrick Humble, and I was like, yeah, like obviously makes so much sense. And he was like, could we do like a big banquet table and it just goes on forever? And I'm like, eesh, budget's going to be a tricky one still. So then like what normally happens in those is we just brainstorm. There's no bad idea. Say what you want, do what you like, show what you want, all of that stuff. Like lots of Tyler the Creator, all of that kind of stuff. And what we kind of took out of those conversations was more like technique based. So it was like, okay, well, when you have a performer like Kojey, I think a lot of the time when you have a great performer in an artist, the tendency is to get the camera and throw it around, right? And I see it so much. I've never really, like Louis was probably one of my first videos to like properly throw the camera around, but the track really needed that. But with Kojey, I was like, I feel like we just need to keep the camera still and you do the work. And like we kind of took from like Quentin Tarantino, which is obviously just a mad jump, but like crash zooms and all of that kind of stuff was like a big thing. And I kind of jokingly said, like after we shot Payback, I kind of jokingly was like, crash zooms are the transitions of last year. And like crash zooms was everywhere this year. But that was something that I'd like always loved with like those kind of film, like any Tarantino film. Like I'm always like, oh, I love the crash zoom. I think it's sick. And like even like when we crash zoom in onto Nux when he's like dickhead, like I think that's it's I don't know. For me, it's like this mad juxtaposition because you kind of want to see his mouth say it, and then he covers it up, and right, so you're like, so. But I really like that because there's no payoff really, and then it cuts straight to Koj, and then you crash zoom back down the table, and so that was like, that was me going to Tom Hull and being like, hey dude, can you get like a really long zoom lens and we'll just crash zoom in and out? And he was like, yeah. But that's kind of all we spoke about. But then it became such a technique from that or for that video. And yeah, it literally was born out of that tagline where I was like, payback. All right, well, that's, you know, the fruition from the, not necessarily trauma, but like, as in just the life that has been led. It's like, okay, well, what is the payback of that? And then once you picture everyone sat around a table and it's the glitz and glam and also just like beautiful black people, like, and really celebrating black culture, which I think we all need to do more of. Like, my career is, you know, like, I owe so much to black culture and black music. And I really wanted to do a video, like, when, like, Kojey was like, all of these people around this table were like the most important people to me, and like they've all battled with me or whatever. And so we really just wanted to put them up and just be like, yo, look at how sick these people are. And like every single one, you're like, you make me laugh in all your videos, or your music has changed music, or whatever it is. It's like, that's what we kind of wanted to do. And like, I don't know, it kind of had like a lot of like the framing, like especially when Swindle's in the foreground, Cash in the background, Wretched in the window, Kojey's in the middle. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know, like what you'd see like a mob boss. Like, you walk into the room and like, do you know what I mean? And I kind of wanted just that power, like just power in every shot. And I wanted you to be able to pause it at any point and be like, that's a sick photograph. And it was kind of, I always say you have three main components for a video, and then everything else just slots in. And I think like celebrating black culture, powerful imagery, and great performance, that's the three things that really made up that video. And like everything else, like the venue that we wanted to use, the owner got COVID the day before that shoot. So like we found out, so I'd say we're shooting on a Wednesday. We found out on Monday, end of play. So like Tuesday morning, me and Tia, my producer, like running around London, trying to find location. We walk into that place at 12. I'm taking photos. My DP couldn't recce. So we're taking photos. I'm sending to him. I'm like, we're going to do this here, that there, this here, that there. I'm changing the shot list. Like, it's mayhem. And then obviously I get that all done, signed off by 6, and then Nux misses his flight. So you're like, rah, like, backs up against the wall. But then when everyone started arriving, just the vibe changed and it just turned into a party. And like, you can really feel that, I think, in that video. And yeah, I think like Payback will always be one of those videos. Like that whole campaign will always be some of my favorite videos. And like, it's so hard. Like, I think, you know, you mentioned it at the beginning. It's like, oh, like the work's there's a really high quality throughout everything. And so it's like, sometimes I have to send a reel and it's like, yeah, you can only send 6 videos. I'm like, I don't know. You choose. Like, I couldn't do it. And that's honestly how I felt about this year. Like, I've really loved every video I've made, and the Kojey project really set the tempo and the pace for that. And it was like, right, this is how I'm going to make videos now.
Yeah, wicked. And I mean, yeah, like you've set that bar, you know,
too high. Too high now. Yeah.
No, but you know what? Like, it's really good to see. Like, it's good to see. It's good to know you, and it's good to chat to you right now about it. Because, like, you know, it's nice just to know about it. In, you know, you see the video in all its glory, but now you get to really understand it. Like, which is really cool.
It's fun.
So yeah, like, how do you think your directing has like matured over time?
Like, it's quite funny, like I don't know, like your directing style is so determined by who you are and like everything. So like your personality is kind of determines the director that you are. And that's all your good traits and your bad traits. So like one of my worst traits is probably people pleasing, but like that's quite a superpower in directing. So like I will work harder to make sure that everyone's quite happy. Like, I will do a treatment for what, like, I remember for Mabel, like, it was like, here's a styling deck, here's the crew list in the deck form, here's what we're shooting in London, here's what's being shot in LA. So I think in that folder, there's like 6 different treatments of different things.
Yeah, that's insane detail.
Yeah. directing is such a weird thing because everyone sees it as like sitting on the thing, shouting about and all of that. But really, it's none of those things. And it's like a lot of my directing is done on my own in the office, or like at home on my desk, or like sitting on my bed, or whatever.
On your days off.
Yeah, on my day. Yeah, just like, you know, I live and die by my shot list. And I think that's something that I've really learned. It's like, put as much detail in the shot list, like a one sheet where everyone can see what's going on. Everyone knows what they're doing. And I think my level of communication has really upped. And like on the lead up to shoots, I will talk to DPs a lot. And like, you know, I don't know, it's such a weird thing because it all happens kind of without you realizing. And I could never tell you really what my style of directing is. Like I just do what I do. And like for ages I was like, is this right? Like, am I a director? Whereas like now it's kind of like, oh, well, I've been booked on all these jobs. I must be doing something all right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But how do we improve it? And so that comes through like being more as prepared as possible. It's like, have your templates ready, whether that's your shot list template. You have like 15 templates of treatment that are for all different types. You have like, you know, for some projects where it's like, what are your DP options? It's like, boom, here's a deck that I've already done with like, that I keep updated, or have DPs for different projects or whatever. It's like all of those things. It's like trying to just be as covered as possible, and like trusting in the people around you to do their things. Like find art directors that you love. Like Joe Munro is a good friend. Like I will hang with him all the time, and he knows what I want. And and sometimes I demand ridiculous things, and he's like, dude, and I'm like, you'll be fine. And so it's like, I suppose it's more just about like the ideas, the fundamental ideas, I think, are getting bigger and bolder. And I think with every video that I make, it's like, okay, well, how can we push this further? And like next year is definitely about that, where it's like, okay, cool, we've done all these videos, we got some nominations for MOBOs, MVAs, whatever, but it's like, how do we go to the videos where you're like, how the fuck did they do that? Or that's just so wild. Or, wow, you'd never expect that pop star to do that video. And like, I think with Harry Styles is a great reference for all of those things, where it's just like he was just a fucking mermaid. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, you wouldn't, like, what, sexy Harry Styles as a mermaid in a sushi restaurant? Like, it kind of makes no sense. But I think it's about having, and it goes back to that thing of like, when you're writing a treatment, it's like, and going, oh, they'll never buy this. But then actually, with the bigger your name gets, the more they'll go, that actually sounds quite interesting. And so now it's like about almost shifting the sort of like, you know, a big Don Charlie Sarsfield into something which people go, oh, you are actually good. Whereas I think like you kind of have to play the mass game, which is like, here's all the names. Now let me go and make the stuff that I want to make type vibe. And that's not to say that this year I'm not immensely proud of what I've achieved, but it's like you know, with my short films or whatever, it's like I want to go and play those games. And it's like, if these are all my singles, then that's like my album and all of that stuff. And it's like, I need to create for myself as well as for everyone else. And it's about working out where the time is to do that, essentially. And I think it's in those personal projects that you potentially find out what your directing style is, when it's almost your money, your time, and everyone's doing favors for you. And you're like, okay, hopefully this is good. One of my kind of like role models and mentors was like, you need to stop thinking about it in weeks and start thinking about it in like 2-3 year slots. And so like, if I look at my career in those kind of slots, like really as a solo director, I've only been a solo director for 3 years. And then like a year and a half before that, I was in a duo, but doing a lot more like series and content branded stuff. So then if I kind of like look at these 3 years and go, wow, like started doing that, and now, you you know, worked with artists, 4 different artists that had number 1 albums last year, like, or this year. It's crazy. So you've got a, but then also I'm like, yeah, wow, that is mad, rather than being like, yeah, cool, obviously I should be doing that.
Any horror stories? Any times that you yourself like fucked it, or you know?
Not, I wouldn't say fucked it. I think like I did a video with Wiley once, and he was, again, I don't know the legalities about all of this, but I don't even think the video's up on YouTube anymore, so it's fine. But I think like he turned up 36 hours late for the shoot. And he arrived, was in great spirits. We did some performance stuff with him. It was great. And then half an hour later, he was like, I'm cold, I'm going. He was like, can I get one more? And he'd just gone. And I was like, all right. And so that's like, I just got back from like 6 weeks in Jamaica as well. So I was proper zen. And like 3 days in, it's like, oh, you're doing a Wiley video. And you're like,
welcome back, baby.
Yeah, exactly. And then like there's been other stuff, like when I did the Crown video for Storms, that was similar. Like I got a call, I was on a beach in Italy and on like a weekend break. And it was like, hi Charlie, what are you doing next week? I was like, nothing. And they were like, cool, we'll be in touch. And then my agent called me when I was at the airport and she was like, what are you like up to tomorrow and Tuesday? And I was like, nothing. I was like, what's going on? And then on the Monday it was like 10 a.m. on the phone to the commissioner and label at the time, and it was like, yeah, cool, so we want to do this thing, Storms wants it to be live, go do it. I was like, cool, when? They were like, tomorrow. I was like, what? I was like, so then I called my producer, I'm like, we got 6 hours to produce this shoot, and like he did bits and we managed to make it all work, but it's like it's those things that no one realizes. And then what we shoot on the Tuesday, it goes live on Wednesday, he plays it on Graham Norton on the Thursday night or whatever, then he's headlining Glastonbury on the Friday, and like that video is the last thing that's shown on the screens, and you're like, it's been some week. And so I think it's all of like those stories, like it's all of those things which you kind of just get like close together. There's no real horror stories. I've had a few videos canned, but more for other things, not really the video. Like Live West commissioned a video that I did, and it's still one of my favorite videos that I've ever done. We made it like in the middle of lockdown, and just on the day it was meant to come out, something broke, and it was like, yeah, cool, the featured artist just is having nothing to do with it.
Oh jeez. And
so you're then like, okay, possibly my best video has gone. And like it was a banger. Like it was a banger. Not necessarily the video. The video was great and I loved it, but the song itself was a banger.
Right.
And you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh. And when a few of those things happen, you are a bit like, oh, maybe I just won't get that break, and I'll need to find another route or whatever. But then luckily this year kind of happened, and half of last year. Like really Untold are a massive part of everything that I do. Like they really are the engine behind it all. And like they want me to win more than I want to win almost. And like, you know, no one needs to push me. I push them quite a lot, and I do nag and hassle them, but they know that's out of a place of like love, and I celebrate their victories like they're my own, and they celebrate my victories like they are kind of are theirs. But I think it's like, there's a really good relationship forming, and I think like, you know, Untold's 4 years old, so it's like it's very new and it's very fresh.
Well, yeah, especially like in the freelance game, like you know, for me recently, I got nominated for like the Young Arrows. Got in like in the cinematography category for like
the boy's gonna blow up next year, bro.
But and like so, like I went to the awards, and that was my first time going like to an awards, and like it was cool. I like caught up with people whilst I was there, but it was just a bit like, it felt a bit, I don't know if forced is the right word, but a bit cliquey. Like everyone's in their own cliques kind of thing.
100.
But you know, that is the industry, and it felt it was quite overwhelming to try and navigate that.
Well, if you go in as an individual,
Just
as
an
well,
individual,
it's tough. But then also I have to be really forced to go out. Like I think Chucky was talking about it on his podcast about how, like, you know, it's like he's all peaceful and calm, and then like someone bangs on the door and is like, yo, you need to go and do this, and it like disturbs your peace almost. And it's like I don't really like going out. I don't really like going to parties. Like I don't like, I'll go to the pub and I enjoy that, and I enjoy going for coffee and walks with people and stuff like that, like calm. But going to a place where you never really know what the vibe is going to be, that stresses me out.
And like, for me, I don't want to go over and just start a conversation with the end goal of it being hire me.
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah, no,
that is
it feels fake.
Yeah.
So like, I went to the MVAs this year. Similar, we had like a table or whatever, but it was. I'm very lucky to know quite a lot of people, so it was almost like catching up with old friends. But then you do have the people coming up to you and being like, "Hi." I'm like, "Hello." And they're like, "Charlie." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What's your plans then?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, like, and I mean, it's such a catch-22. Like, I have a lot of people that reach out to me on Instagram, like young people who are like, "I want to get into the industry. I want to do it," and I'll meet up with as many of them as I can. Like, have probably like 20 to 25, like 18 to 23, who are like making stuff, will send me stuff, will ask me questions, and like, I am not very good at staying on top of it all, but I do try, and I'll be like, shit, I haven't messaged Louisa back or whatever. I haven't actually. But it's one of them where, like, all of that I'm really down for, and any like thing that I can help with, like if they go, I want to run more, or I want to learn more, or I'll be like, you should reach out to this DP and speak to them. But like, I'm not very good if it's like DPs reaching out to me being like, yo bro, like let's work or whatever, especially if it's like, I don't ever go through my requests, so if there are DP, like I just don't do it.
Yeah, I think like Instagram is such a good tool these days, because it, you know, you say you don't want to go out, chat to these people, you don't have to, because there is that online platform that has it there 24/7. Anyone can go look at it, you know. And I think that's what I've realized. It's like it's such a good way to market yourself and present yourself, and that's why I want to do things like this. So I make myself more personable online. It's not just the stills that I do. It's not just, you know, whatever. It's like the behind the scenes, and I tried to build a connection with people that way.
Exactly. It's the personality behind the images, I think, is really important. And like, I think the reason why I can kind of go, here's my work, is because the commissioners know who I am. Like, we've met. Like, it's not like whereas I think for DPs, like the rate at which new directors are coming out all the time, it's like, it's so hard to know all the directors, and it's quite hard to know all the DPs as well. And like, I'm sure there are some sick DPs that have, you know, DM'd and been like, yo, let's work, and that's not, but it's just like, I need it to almost be like a real life connection before Instagram. So like, I was first made aware of you by my friend Seb Miller, who is good friends with Tommy Davis. So like, all of that, and then I know Tommy through the Rat Boy videos that he did. So it's like, with that, it was like, oh well, I know Toby. Oh, I don't know, but I know that Toby's a good dude. So it's got to be that for me, especially because making videos is so personal to me. So I need to almost feel like it's family on set all the time. I
think you've literally hit the nail on the head, like, because filmmaking is such a personal thing, and you go to war essentially on set, and like, you don't want to do that with a person you've never met, or you don't know, you don't really know. It's such a catch-22 though, because at the same time you need to like
branch out,
you need to be reaching out, you need to be like advocating yourself.
Exactly. But then I think also it's like with me and you, for example, I think we started speaking at the beginning of the year, but we didn't actually work together until August or later than that. And like, with Courtney, I've known Courtney for 5 years, and we've only just started working together. And like, so like it's kind of like I'll never, even if I was out and I met a DP and they were like, yo, let's work together or whatever, I wouldn't be like, cool, I've got a shoot next week, do you want to do it? Like, I just wouldn't do that. It takes me time to like have a shorthand of comms as well. Like, I also need my DPs to know if I'm actually happy with something, because you know, if a shot's shit, you don't want to turn around on set and be like, that shot's shit. But you also need them to know if you're going, yeah, that's good, or whether you're going, yeah, man, that's good. Like, it's calm. Like, let's move on, because of the energy of set.
For the people watching, just a takeaway note on that is just foster the relationships in real time. You went into depth a lot just about the process, which I think is really invaluable, and like obviously very kind of you to share, because I know some people can be a little bit like, like it's the secret, you know. And
I think we all need to win, and I think that's like the main thing for me, is that I want to help the next generation get into to be where like, I don't even think I'm that far, but if people want to get to where I am, then I'm here to talk. And I'm always like, you know, people go, how do you do live sessions? I'm like, this is how I do them. Just like
on a final bit, you know, for like an up and coming director, a person who isn't really in the industry, what should their first steps be? Like, any advice?
Yeah, I suppose, like, I think we spoke about it a bit, but like, it is just play at the beginning. Like, I think there's no pressure on you at the beginning, and and it happens so quick that when there is pressure on you, you go, fuck, I didn't really enjoy that whole playtime that I had. And it is like, play with shutter speeds, play with different mediums, have fun, try different colors, shoot black and white, do the weird stuff, invert your footage, like really play with it, and like almost be relentless in what you want. And I think that's such an important thing. Like, I think we get into this industry and it's like, oh, you could make that and you should do that. Where it's like, if you want to, like, I love it when I meet someone who's like, I just want to make short films. And you're like, sick. Like, that's so sick. Or like, I want to just make music videos. Like, great. And I think there's so much strength and power in that. And I think that needs to be like celebrated more, in like, know what you do and do it. And whether that's shooting on an iPhone to an Arri, like, it doesn't matter. And so have fun, play, work hard, be relentless. And again, I do think that hard work pays more than talent sometimes. And yeah, as said, as aforementioned, got any questions, hit me up. I'm about sometimes.
Mainly by actual
bird. if you could put pigeon mail is great. The kookier the better, really. I think.
We're there. Well, yeah, anyway, so yeah, you guys go follow Charlie on Instagram, on the socials, whatever. I don't know what he's on, but you know, on whatever, go find him. He's a great guy, and yeah, like he said, reach out to him. But yeah, Charlie, thank you very much for today.
Big up, Tobes. You're a legend. Love, brother. Bye.